Mrs. Beatrice, the landlady. A wealthy, middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and a permanent frown. She dresses in expensive lace and gold jewelry but has a cold heart. Known for humiliating tenants, increasing rent without warning, and evicting widows without mercy. She believes money makes her a god. Mrs. Beatrice stood on her balcony, arms crossed, looking down at her compound like a queen over prisoners. Tenants avoided eye contact whenever she appeared. Late rent meant insults. Complaints meant eviction. She smiled cruelly. In this place, she often said, I am the law. Amina, the tenant. A quiet, hard-working young widow in her early 30s. Slim, dark-skinned, always wearing simple dresses. She sells vegetables at the roadside to feed her 2 children. Soft-spoken but strong inside. Amina returned from the market, sweat on her face, coins clutched tightly in her palm. Her children ran to her, but worry lived in her eyes. Rent was overdue by 3 days. She whispered a prayer before entering her room. Mrs. Beatrice stormed into the compound like thunder. Lazy woman, she shouted at Amina. You think pity pays rent? In front of everyone, she poured Amina's vegetables onto the ground. Amina knelt, trembling, not to beg, but to gather her dignity. That night, Amina found a red eviction notice pasted on her door. 48 hours. Her children slept as she cried silently, holding the paper like a death sentence. Unknown to the tenants, Mrs. Beatrice's buildings were illegal. No permits. No safety standards. No mercy, until fate knocked. A black government vehicle entered the compound. Mr. Daniel Okri stepped out calmly, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Beatrice laughed. You people again. Do you know who I am? Daniel looked at her, unshaken. Yes. And that's why I'm here. Daniel inspected the buildings. Cracks. Illegal wiring. No documents. Tenants whispered. Fear shifted from tenants to the landlady. Mrs. Beatrice's face hardened. Mrs. Beatrice tried to bribe him. Daniel closed the envelope. Madam, your money cannot rent my conscience. He ordered immediate sealing of the buildings and opened a legal case. Mrs. Beatrice was led away by officials. Her jewelry couldn't save her. Her power evaporated. Tenants watched in silence, then relief. Weeks later, the government relocated tenants. Amina received support to start a small shop. As sunlight filled her new home, she smiled, not in revenge, but in peace. Power bowed to justice. That night, the compound buzzed with quiet conversations. Tenants gathered in corners, whispering in disbelief. Can it be true? Is she finally afraid? Mrs. Beatrice watched from her window, curtains slightly open. For the first time, fear crept into her heart. Memories returned like ghosts. A pregnant woman crying as her belongings were thrown out. An old man begging for one more week. Mrs. Beatrice turning away without blinking. Now, the echoes returned to judge her. The next morning, Daniel asked tenants to speak freely. Amina stepped forward, hands shaking, but her voice steady. She treated us like we were nothing, she said. But we are human. Silence followed. Then nods. Mrs. Beatrice made desperate phone calls. Politicians ignored her. Old friends switched off their phones. Power built on cruelty had no loyalty. Government officers placed bold red seals on every building. Sealed by authority. Mrs. Beatrice collapsed into a chair as the locks clicked shut. Amina's son tugged her dress. "Mama, why is that woman crying?" Amina replied softly. "Because she forgot kindness." In court, documents piled high. Evidence spoke louder than money. The judge looked at Mrs. Beatrice. "This court protects people, not pride." Fines. Property seizure. Community service. Mrs. Beatrice bowed her head. The untouchable was now accountable. Tenants helped one another move. Laughter slowly returned. Amina's strength inspired others to stand tall. Mrs. Beatrice swept streets as part of her service. People passed her without hatred, only silence. Power had left her. But humility had arrived. She walked through the same compound she once ruled. No one bowed. No one greeted her. Doors that once opened for fear now stayed closed. Her mansion felt smaller now. The walls echoed. No laughter. No servants. She sat alone, hearing only the ticking of a clock. Government letter arrived. Final notice, property officially seized. Her hands shook as the paper fell. Rain poured heavily as Mrs. Beatrice stood outside. For the first time, she whispered, "I was wrong. But rain has no ears." Amina opened her small shop. Tenants came not just to buy, but to support. Respect replaced fear. Mrs. Beatrice saw Amina across the street. Their eyes met. For a moment, power, pain, and truth collided. Mrs. Beatrice approached slowly. "I cannot undo the past," she said. "But I ask for forgiveness." The word seemed to hold its breath. Amina paused. "I forgive you," she said. "Not for you, but for my peace." Chains broke on both sides. Mrs. Beatrice now served food at a community shelter. She spoke less. Listened more. Power had changed shape. The compound became a lesson parents told their children. "Money without kindness is poverty," they said. And the land remembered. Children in the compound pointed at the sealed buildings. "That's where fear lived," one said. "But it doesn't live here anymore." An elderly woman arrived with a walking stick. She stared at Mrs. Beatrice during community service. "You evicted me 10 years ago," she said quietly. Mrs. Beatrice bowed her head. "I slept in a church because of you," the old woman continued. "But I survived." Those words struck harder than prison bars. That night, Mrs. Beatrice couldn't sleep. Her past replayed louder than thunder. She clutched her chest, not from pain, but from truth. She opened an old diary, blank pages she once ignored. Now she began to write. "I mistook fear for respect." Amina began mentoring other widows. "Your voice matters," she said gently. Hope multiplied. Daniel stood alone, watching the sunset. Justice had been served, but lives were changed forever. He smiled quietly. The compound held its first open meeting. No shouting. No fear. Only voices. Amina's daughter drew a picture. A big house. Small people smiling. "This is how homes should be," she said. Mrs. Beatrice swept the final street. Her back ached, but her heart felt lighter. There was no celebration when she finished. Only silence. And that was enough. She bought bread for a hungry boy. No cameras. No witnesses. Just change. New buildings rose, legal, safe, fair. Children played freely. Fear never returned. Teachers told the story in classrooms. Power without mercy destroys itself. Amina stood at her shop at sunset. Behind her, life. Behind the land, memory. Justice had spoken. Years passed. The land where fear once lived became a place of laughter and fairness. Children grew without learning how to tremble at footsteps. Doors opened without panic. Rent was discussed, not demanded. Amina stood outside her shop one evening, watching the sun melt into the sky. She had not become rich, but she had become free. Across the street, Mrs. Beatrice walked slowly, older now, quieter. She was no longer feared, nor hated, only remembered. She paused, looked at the compound, and nodded to herself. She finally understood the truth she learned too late. Power that crushes others always destroys its owner. But kindness builds a legacy no force can erase. A gentle wind passed through the compound, carrying away the last shadow of the past. And the land rested. Please subscribe for more stories.